Hello and welcome back to Logical Magic Examining Esoterica. Hey guys, today I have an episode on the energy that will help you inhabit your personal power, will fuel your manifestations, will make your magic possible, and will also help you achieve spiritual enlightenment. And there are several energies that go into this, but they are the lessons that we have to learn to be given access to our full divine power. And along that road, it can be very bumpy and very challenging. And you kind of have to learn perseverance is one of the first things they're going to start teaching you. And the key to all of this is going to be a word that nobody particularly likes. And before I even say it, I need you to hear me on something. This word is not synonymous with waiting, but most people treat it as if they are being told they must wait. And it is because they are actually reacting to the word with its opposite energy. And that word is patience. In order to have full access to your power, you have to have patience. And here is why. Particularly when you're trying to manifest success, particularly when you're trying to manifest money, particularly when you're trying to manifest the goals in your life that lead to your life's purpose, you have to be able to take what comes at you and not have big reactions, not have self-destructive reactions. I'm always trying to get people to understand that patience is power and patience is peace. Patience is the cure for anxiety, by the way, because almost all anxiety is contained in what you fear will happen in the future. And when you are in a patient energy, it has absolutely nothing to do with loitering, lingering, waiting, or things being delayed. What it does have to do is dropping your barriers that are made out of frustration, anxiousness, and fear, and removing the blockages, the fragmented energy that actually comes from your shadow side. Absolutely everything that makes you react with impatience. And when I say you, I mean me too. I have really had to learn this, and it's been a long lesson, and it's totally been worth learning. And I will tell you how you can start to achieve patience if it is something that even hearing the word makes you go, oh God, no, oh, no more waiting, which is how most people react to it. That is not what it means. It is a relaxed energy. It is also the key to surrender, which is part of your life's purpose, part of your purposeful journey, part of your soul's journey, and it is essential to being able to be in full and complete alignment with your divine self. So surrender and patience you can treat those as being almost synonymous. Because if you keep asking yourself, when is something going to happen? Why hasn't it happened yet? Why do you keep doing this to me? You are not living in a patient energy. If you are in a patient energy, and we covered this in the divine timing episode. By the way, Jacob was supposed to be able to do this episode with me, but there was a calamity where he worked. And I was like, well, I actually need to get this one recorded because it's going to be in conjunction with another podcast that I did that will mention this quite a bit. It's Nicole Devlin's To the Nth Power. And that'll be out, I think, before this one is. But this is a follow-up to it. How do we develop patience, and why is it the key to our power? First of all, the first thing you have to do is understand that it is a process, and that as you try to step into your full power, and that is your ability to manifest, and that is your ability to draw towards you everything that you want to have happen, you will experience setbacks so that you can learn how to deal with them. The thing that I'm always trying to get people to understand, and finally something happened so recently, I can use it as an example as to why success is actually more stressful than people think it is. Because more opportunities will come towards you. You will have to have a great level of self-control as well, because you will begin to fear losing what you have accumulated if you have not conquered fear. And again, fear and anxiety, so close, they're like this. And by the way, there's always a video of all of these episodes on my YouTube channel, Cronecast at the Rising Moon. You can always find the audio under Logical Magic Examining Esoterica. And I do tag the videos with it, but I didn't set up a separate channel for it. You will be challenged with adversity and a fear of failure as well. Failure is simply showing you what doesn't work and what you need to improve in order to hone your skills, in order to have the most success that you can. There's hardly any success in this world without there having been a counterbalancing, that is keeping things in an energetic balance, failure, where you may have gone down the wrong road, And then you had to course correct to lean into your true gifts. So the example that I wanted to use about success actually being as stressful as almost anything else is a young woman on TikTok, and she's in the do-it-yourself community, and she's been very popular. And I'm not going to use her name because, like, people don't deserve to be burned in effigy. But if you know, you know, and you don't need to know her name to listen to the example. She's young. She has a very vibrant maximalist style. She became convinced that another popular TikToker was copying her, and she wasn't. She wasn't. People went back and examined the dates and the times and almost everything that this young woman who acted impulsively, so she wasn't being patient. You have to sit with your decisions when you're successful, because remember, absolutely everything you do can be used against you. If you are successful, people will try to come for you. There are counterbalancing forces in this world that try to keep you from fulfilling your potential. So expect it at different times. Now, you can do a lot of protective work to be protected, and I really encourage people to protect themselves every single day to make sure that they remove any attachments, cut any cords. When you're interacting with people, their attachments kind of try and glom onto you. And even though you're protected, even if you're doing all of the things to invoke protection, please remember there are eternal forces on the other side of this, and it just never helps to center, to balance, to meditate, to do energetic cleansing. And that is the most important part of keeping your space clear of negative energies. But this young woman became convinced that this other do-it-yourself person was copying her. And the do-it-yourself person that she said was copying her is named Corinne Joy. And she's delightful. Everybody loves her personality. And in a moment of weakness, this other person posted a video in which she said she's never petty, but she's going to go ahead and be petty. And began highlighting all of these things where she thought she was copied. She was wrong. She was acting from a place of actual, she was fearing for her own success that this person was stealing her ideas. And instead of like really examining it for, what am I actually afraid of? Am I afraid I'm going to lose my success? She overreacted. She acted impulsively, and she did something incredibly self-destructive. Because in most social media communities, there is a backlash against anything we do that is perceived to be against another person. Now, she took it down immediately, and she posted a not apology where she's like, I should have handled it privately. But she had been accusing this person essentially of a form of creative plagiarism, and she was not guilty of it. And everybody kind of kept coming for her. But the thing that finally got her to pay attention to that I did something wrong was that the company that was carrying her wallpaper dropped her, because she had gone after this young woman who had also purchased her wallpaper, which is a removable wallpaper. And again, she's a very particular style, but she didn't invent it. We have to remember there is a collective consciousness, and she was incorrect in simply all of her accusations. So she will be living with trying to regain her reputation. The thing that she did was she benefited the other creator. The other creator is up over 2 million followers now because people went towards the person they could see was being injured. Because this young woman had had so much success so quickly, the original TikToker, she didn't learn how to handle the stress of it, to understand that, hey, once something's out there, you lose control of it. And particularly if you're in the do-it-yourself community, people are going to do it. But she didn't understand that she was feeling afraid and threatened by this other person, and she did something self-destructive and self-sabotaging. Now, it is my belief that she was completely sincere in the apology that she did eventually put out there. But of course, it was criticized by the same people who are trying to continue to, in their own turn, tear somebody down. Because when people are successful, other people resent it. And it's not that they don't deserve their success or that the people who resent it, they're working from their own pain. This is something I've gone into before, is that everything somebody tries to bring towards you is actually what's going on in them. And it usually doesn't have a lot to do with you. So that is the example that is very, very close to the time that I'm recording this, of how success carries with it its own forms of stress that you need to be able to be patient with. If that poor girl had just, and she's quite young, she's a young woman, I shouldn't be calling her a girl, I beg your pardon. This young woman, if she had sat with her impulse to act out and question, why am I feeling this way? Why would, and they'd had interactions before, and it really was a case of this first creator feeling threatened by the other one's personality drawing in so many people, and she felt like she was taking her designs and she wasn't. And I think it will all come out in the wash, and I think it was probably a really good lesson for them. And honest to goodness, I wish that girl nothing, that woman, that young woman, nothing but success, because she is creative and she does have a decorative eye and she does have a lot of gumption and a lot of drive and a lot of self-discipline. But that is the prime example in recent history of how, if success comes to you very quickly and you're not prepared to handle it, you can accidentally, because you haven't learned how to take that part of it. I will every now and then, like it happens to absolutely every person who creates something, is you'll see somebody else doing something and it's like, that's obviously inspired by what I did. It's often not. There really is a collective consciousness, but it can feel that way. And every single time you have to kind of repeat to yourself, hey, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. And to learn how to take things and to be able to sit with something, to not act impulsively, to question your negative reactions. When you are successful in the modern day with social media, everything that you say, everything that you react to will come back to you and it will come back to you in ways that you never anticipated. The first creator genuinely thought she was in the right until that wallpaper line was pulled. And then she had to look at, it's like, I clearly did something wrong. And she did issue an apology. So one of the things with patience is when you feel yourself being frustrated, do a sacral chakra release. They're all over YouTube. My favorite channels are Inner Lotus Music, Meditative Mind, Healing Vibrations, Tao Wind Spirit. I like Sound Energy Alchemist as well, but they don't do a lot with chakras. They do a lot with clearings, and they have a really, really good cord cutting and a really good spell breaker. Now, even if you don't believe in magic, it never hurts to throw on a spell breaker. And here's why: you may have ancestral magic and ancestral curses, which are often like result in generational trauma. It never hurts to put those on. You're very seldom going to get in trouble with clearing work. Anything that breaks dark energy around you will help a great deal. So when you're trying to succeed and when you're trying to conquer patience, because patience truly is power, when you are patient, other people cannot trigger you into self-destructive reactions. When you are patient, you know that everything that is meant for you is coming to you. And if you continue to apply your efforts, everything will return to you. But on the journey to success, please understand that even if you have a very clear vision of what you're meant to do and you're positive you're being called to this, you're going to be tested. And the tests are not about like your spirit guides or any divine source or any like part of your higher self that's like, I don't like you very much, so I'm going to poke you around until you squirm and breathe and scream and change yourself. That's not what it's about. It's making you learn to work with the energies that will come at you when you are successful. And I've got little cue cards in front of you because normally Jacob and I are having a back and forth and I don't need notes at all. But like I'm working with fear, is you may not be able to see that. In fact, it looks like I've got too much bounce from my ring light. This one says fear. And that really is, I realize that I'm testing my resolve to live in the energy of love. Whenever you are afraid of something, I need you to understand something. It is a lack of belief in yourself, a lack of a belief in your own intuition, a lack of belief in your own power. And we need belief to be in our own power. So belief and patience and discipline are the three things that you need for your personal power. And when you hear belief, please don't think in a spiritual source or in a religion. It is belief in the ability that your personal power will shape your personal universe. And if you go to that through a connection to the divine, awesome. If you go to that through a connection simply to your higher self, that's cool too. There is no wrong approach to your universal connection. You will be guided to the one that is right for you. But get used to the fact that when you are impatient, the underlying issue is actually that you're afraid of something. Because impatience is the first thing something runs into, anxiety is the next, and fear is the last. It's like a three-tiered step. And impatience is the thing to overcome. When you feel frustration rise up, understand it's a blocking energy. Take 3 deep cleansing breaths in and out and tell yourself, I'm choosing peace. Everything will happen when it's meant to. One of the things that, like, I'm always talking about my ex-partner it was a toxic relationship. And, but I did have a couple of funny things that carried forward. He did have a saying, no one's dying on a table here. And it was the most valuable thing that I learned from him, is to understand, to have a proportional response to the level of threat to you. And most of the time, it's like, is my life in danger? No. Is my reputation in danger? Not unless I react in a way that is destructive to myself. Is my security in danger? All you can ever do is put your effort into making what you are trying to make and understand that what is meant for you will actually return to you. And it is a difficult energy, but it's one that you just keep repeating it. Remember, you reprogram your response system through repetition, through having the routines that will connect you to your personal power and help you shed the darker energies. And then the next one's difficult because this is the thing that will also come to you as you are being taught patience. As you are being taught patience, be prepared to have some things fail. And failure is something we've been taught to fear. And every single success story you've ever seen has somebody who tried something that didn't work out and they learned something crucial to what did work out. And here I'm going to use myself as an example. When I first started reading tarot on YouTube, all I wanted really to be was a tarot reader. And I actually was being quite successful for somebody who had just started out on YouTube. Like, I did well, I made good gains. But I realized early on that the thing that was getting the most attention, the ones that were getting like 1,000 views within a 24-hour period, which is one of the marks of success, were all the relationship readings. And it is not something I encourage people to focus overly on because your journey is your journey and love may be part of that. But if you make it the sole focus of your life, you are handing your power to another person because they will have so much control over your personal happiness. So you establish your happiness by going for what you want, what you can make happen, how you can learn to be happy as yourself and sometimes by yourself. And it doesn't mean remaining by yourself or even being single. What it means is that your happiness will not be dependent on another person. So with the love readings being the only ones that were really, really doing well, I had to ask myself, is this something I'm comfortable encouraging people to do? And it was not. And it's not that I have anything against love. I really don't. It's just that I've seen so many people have to overcome traumatic injuries, emotional injuries, dysfunction, a belief that they aren't lovable because they put too much of their worth into failed relationships. And it was not their fault. Frequently, it is, we live in a society that particularly tells people who identify as a woman that you have to be paired up to be viewed as valuable, as desirable, as lovable. Take your power back. That's the other thing that is about personal empowerment, is understanding that the moment you put your self-image into the hands of another human being, you've lost control over it and you don't have your power. Step into your power first and failure will be brought to you. And so I was like, okay, I need to switch. I need to do something different. I need to go more towards healing and guiding people towards their life's purpose. And if it means taking a step back and not being perceived as being as successful as I was at first, that's okay with me because I will like myself more. I will like the work I am doing more. And I absolutely completely switched directions that I was taking things in. I was guided to do it, but it is something that everything has to fit with your compass, your moral compass inside, what you're guided to do. And different people will have different directions because I'm always telling people we're all walking different paths. And if whatever your path is leading you towards, your conscience will guide you. So failure will be a part of learning patience because you have to be able to persevere, to overcome adversity. And this is the next card, adversity. I accept that challenges are the best way to learn. I cannot even tell you the number of things the universe brought to me to absolutely irritate the living stuffing out of me as they were teaching me patience. And am I a perfectly patient person? I'm a fiery human being. And so everything that I have, all of the elements that I have access to, they're big. And so am I like some kind of placid, peaceful? No, I'm not. But I'm able to choose patience when I can understand. It's like, well, that's just not that big a deal. That's that whole, what my, ex-partner taught me about the no one's dying on a table here. Understand the proportional risk within a moment, reevaluate your response system accordingly. And that's part of the responding, not reacting energy, that to have control over your power, which includes your magic, which includes your intuition, which includes every single part of being in alignment with your highest self. In order to have control over that, you have to be able to take a greater perspective on things. One of the things that you will be tested on is things will be delayed. If you've been told that you will be very successful, Honest to goodness, it'll be like the carrot in front of a donkey on a cart, where they're just leading you forward and leading you forward and leading you forward, and expect to get to the point multiple times where you're like, oh, this is just a carrot you're dangling in front of me. No, they're trying to teach you that the way towards your own personal empowerment is to not give up on yourself. Because a lack of self-esteem and a lack of self-worth is one of the things that is kind of ingrained again into people who are the healers, who are the empaths of this world, the people who really care about others. Sometimes they lose control of their self-image and it gets put into the hands of other people because they care so much about other people. So you will have adversity and you will have setbacks and you will have delays, and they are all to help you build up the strong foundation that success has to have in order for it to be unassailable. I do not know, and I haven't looked in cards because I actually don't sit around reading strangers, what will happen to that like very nice young woman on TikTok. Like, I really genuinely hope that this is just something that, flows away from her. She just made a mistake. She just made a mistake and she overreacted because she was coming from a place of thinking that somebody else was benefiting from her hard work, when in fact, the other creator was benefiting from her own hard work and from her own creativity. And some of her designs had, as was proven, predated the one who put up the video. And I wish her so well because she's so creative and she has such a unique eye. And I hope her success is in no way blemished by this, but I bet she learned a big lesson and helped, and we will grow. You learn through those things. Courage is the other thing that you will have to learn, because in order to succeed, you have to have a kind of bravery where you do not care what other people say about you, think about you, or judge you as being. Instead, your self-esteem will have to be thoroughly in your hands. If you do not learn the lessons that are brought to us through patience, that helps teach us humility, which is understanding that we all have our challenges, and that, like, maybe if you're being brought test after test, it's because you have some things to learn, and don't we all? We will be students throughout the course of our lives. So courage is the other thing, where you're going to be asked to face some fears, including, like, can you keep going even if it feels like it's an ever elusive finish line? And that will happen. If you give up on yourself, you're not ready for the stress and the strain that true success can bring. And particularly for the people who listen to me who are in healing or teaching or guiding professions, you have to be able to protect yourself and have good boundaries. And that is one of the things that the lessons about having to face your fears will teach you, because you will have more and more confidence and more belief. And why is belief so important to the concepts of patience, manifestation, and empowerment? Because you have to believe there's a point to the things that we do. You have to believe that the things that are being brought to you are here to help you with something. And we always run into this problem because I deal with people who have extreme trauma in their childhoods. And the reason that trauma was there is not that they were asking for it, or they had trauma inflicted upon them to teach them lessons. It is because it's the path that you chose. And often people who want to be healers have to be able to trust their own guidance. So they will have experiences in their early experiences that will make them feel alienated from other people, separate from other people, perhaps not accepted. Because if you don't feel accepted by others, you have to learn to accept yourself, to love yourself, and to work on whatever it is you would wish to improve. And remember, no matter what state you're in, you are fully lovable. The divine loves you regardless. Your higher self loves you regardless. But if you're trying to take a path of spiritual enlightenment, one of the things that you have to achieve is ego death. And what's part of ego death? Patience. Patience, it all comes back to patience. It all comes back to patience. And very powerful people, because they can make things happen, frequently struggle with impatience. And then, of course, we've got patience, which leads to surrender. Once you have been able to inhabit a patient energy, you will have achieved surrender, because you will know that everything happens when it's meant to. Every test that is brought to you is trying to help improve you, to fuel your greater success, to give you more power, to give you more ability. And one of the things that we have to do when we're living in the present is to understand that when the present moment passes, it is actually you're leaving things behind. which includes like, I keep calling them Challenge Me Mondays because for whatever reason, I think it's because it's the one that works most closely in conjunction with the energy of the moon. Mondays are the kick the living crap out of me day in terms of frustration and things going wrong and mysterious power failures and files being corrupted. And like, I've just started to roll with it every day. When it's a Monday, I wake up and I'm like, okay, come at me, bro. What's this going to be like? And it always is something where at the end of the day, I'm like, well, that's fully sucked and it tweaked out my frustration, but I can notice my progress. And that is the thing to look for when you're trying to learn more patience, is look for the progress that you've made. When things go wrong, don't just be like, oh, I still lost my temper. I still became frustrated. I still. Look at the degree to which it happened. Because my idea of being frustrated now is like I'm mildly irked and absolutely nobody can tell. And that is, again, it is key to success to not be reactionary. You have to get to the point, because that patience thing is a key element. It is a key to success in understanding that what other people think and do and say is about what's going on in them. And if you let it be about, I take your judgments to heart. Now, listen, we can all receive advice that we need. Going back to that example of the creator, for 4 days, she had to watch her comment section of people just being like, oh my goodness, you were wrong. And they weren't that polite about it because they were angry and upset in some instances. And so they really went for this young woman. And she at first wouldn't accept the lesson. If you hear something from one person, if it doesn't have validity in your life, discard it. If you're hearing it from 25, it's like that might actually be something I need to pay attention to. And one of the things that I had to learn is that, like, throughout the course of my life, and I just never understood it, so I always dismissed it, was that people who initially met me and became friends with me would eventually tell me, I was really intimidated when I met you. And I was like, why? I'm like short and all kinds of things. And it's because I'm super direct. And I say things with a great deal of conviction, and I don't hesitate to speak my mind, and a couple of other things. And after a while, after realizing, it's like, well, if 10 people have said this, then there's a core of validity to it. I should look for the seed of truth and see what I want to do with that. Now, I'm not going to abandon my ability to be forthright. I'm not going to abandon my ability to have a lot of emphasis in things. A lot of those things are integral to the things that I'm trying to do. But I did learn that, hey, if many people have told you this, there's a reason. Make sure that you counterbalance everything you're saying to understand that the way you mean something is not always the way it's going to be received, and to make an effort to, soften those edges sometimes. And have I learned it? Yeah. Over time, I really have learned how to understand that being direct, there's a million different ways to say the exact same thing, and to say it in a way that people can hear it, which is part of what people who are divine conduits, I'm going to have a lot of divine conduits in this particular audience, because everything that I can do, even though I'm gifted in particular areas, I know that I am not uniquely gifted. In fact, the other day I was reading for somebody who's like, I can't tell you this stuff because it's way too personal, but there was a moment in which I had to talk about some protection and talk about the Archangel Gabriel. And my client answered, Gabriel, that's my guide. And it turned out this person also worked with people overcoming early childhood trauma. And so it was like, oh, we're clearly both divine conduits for Gabriel. We're just working in different fields. And that will happen. Everything that you can do, even if you're wonderful and gifted, please remember we are all equal. And the gifts that you are given may come with these challenges around learning patience, around learning that if you're still fearing what's going to happen to me, you haven't surrendered. And it can be terrifying. It genuinely can be. Is that, like, it's not always going to be the easiest path, because the law of attraction and life's purposes are not necessarily going to run directly side by side. The law of attraction can be like a wonderful tool. And some of the things that the scripting and a couple of other things can really aid manifestation and magic. But it's not often guided by the same principles that a life's purpose is, which is a life's purpose journey, one towards spiritual evolution, tells you that you came here to do a particular thing, and that is your goal. Even if it's a difficult path, even if it's one that seems uphill all the darn way, it's the one you're going to climb. It's the one you're going to do. The law of attraction is very much about, well, what do I want? And quite frequently in a life, and that's, I'm not disdaining that. Remember, different people get to come here for different purposes. They're on their own path. Don't judge it. It's like, yeah, no, maybe I did that lifetime last time. I don't know. All paths are equal. And if somebody isn't called to something, they simply aren't called to something. Now, it is important to remember that those aren't the people who are meant to be your besties, you know? I have someone in my life who I've helped with some things and they have helped me with some things. But at the core of it, we have different guiding compasses. And it has been difficult for me to accept that it's like, okay, we've walked the journey together that we're meant to, and that like when we intersect now, it will be occasional. I can't guide your journey and you can't guide mine, because like I have a great fondness for this person, but the evidence finally mounted up to the point where it's like, okay, I need to accept this, because nothing this person was helping me with would make any progress. And it's because I was very, very blocked on it. And I did keep getting cards that my biggest problem is that I will get a message, and if I don't like it, I will ignore it for a long time, because I have a lot of willpower and I can usually muscle through things and I can make things happen. And I always have been able to. And it was repeated, and I'd always assign it to something else. And like it was a beware card and a couple of other things. And finally, I had to accept, no, it's because this particular person and I are meant to be going in different directions. And it's, again, not a judgment. It's just they wish to walk in a different land than I do. And I have to walk in the land that I've been asked to if I wish to fulfill my life's purpose and to surrender, which surrender is releasing your need to control. And at the very root of that is the idea of patience. If you have surrendered your need to control in a spiritual journey, understanding that there is a reason and there is merit to absolutely everything that crosses your path, because if you choose to, you can learn something from it. You can learn more tolerance of yourself and others. You can learn to take a greater perspective. You can learn to have a proportionate response within a moment rather than, and it's hard because a lot of people are very good at emotionally masking. They're good at suppressing their feelings and repressing their feelings, but that's not the same thing as self-control. In fact, it creates kind of a back pressure or backlog of feelings. And when something happens, you can have an overreaction, as in the example that I used before of the TikToker. Like that, like she brought too much energy to something because she was venting her frustrations about a bunch of different situations onto that situation. And like, if you know what I'm talking about, please have compassion for her. Honest to goodness, that's a lot of success to come at somebody in a short time. And it is one of the things that social media can fuel and make possible. And I feel for her. I really genuinely feel for her, because hopefully it will fuel a greater success and a greater understanding of how she actually reacts. And I think the reason I have so much sympathy for it, and I keep revisiting it as an example, is it's like, oh, I could totally see myself doing that at a different time in my life. At a different time in my life, I can absolutely see me being like, being so afraid that everything that you'd worked so hard for was going to be taken away from you, because she genuinely did think she was being copied, and she just wasn't. I think really had to face that part. So these are the things that will go into your success. Learn to cope with your fears, learn to cope with your failures, knowing that adversity doesn't mean that you are disliked by your own guides, your ancestors, your guardians, or your angels, but that it is trying to point out you still have a weakness in this area. Always think of it like strength training. I'm always trying to get people to understand things with a very 3D analogy. Even though I am a spiritual worker, even though I do connect to archangels and I summon them in celestial and angelic magic, which there's something I wanted to address about being a celestial and angelic magic practitioner. It is easiest for people to understand what I am talking about if I say that I'm a witch. In truth, I am not a witch. I'm a high priestess. If you practice celestial and angelic magic, you are either a priest or you're a priestess. And why? It's just because of the approach to it is through a very divine approach, meaning your biggest connection is to divine source. And why would I not walk around calling myself a high priestess of celestial and angelic magic? Simply because it feels peculiar to me. Like it feels a little like, I don't know, prideful or grandiose or something. And it's a technicality. But somebody who interviewed me for a podcast, wanted to entitle it My Interview with a Witch. And it's like, we technically can't do that because technically I'm not really a witch. I do practice celestial and angelic magic, but weirdly enough, not everyone who practices magic can be termed a witch or a wizard. So anyway, I'm a high priestess. I know other people who function in different belief systems, and they have their own titles, which is a catch-all for people who are interacting with magical abilities. And what you really need for your magic is, I'm going to say it, it's patience. Because for things to come into form in the best way that you want them to, which means that you can retain them, they will bring positive energies into your life. It can take time. Including, like, did I do a bunch of success and prosperity magic? Of course I did. Like honest to goodness, anybody who can practice. But because of what I reach for, which you have to have a very good intent, the closest you can get to pure intent for celestial and angelic magic, it did mean that it would bring to me what I needed to learn to access my higher self as success was brought to me. And so all of the lessons, I literally asked for every lesson that has been being brought to me. It is really, really hard to cope with sometimes because some of the things that have happened have been just downright funny in terms of, like, I keep trying to make things happen because I get nervous about, like, well, this isn't working out, so clearly I need to do something else. And I'm like, no, you're on the right path. You're on the right path. I will try and film or make content when I'm like, well, if you're not going to do it, I'm going to have to. I'm just going to have to muscle through this. I have had full files disappear. The other day, I filmed a full pick-a-card that had zero sound for no reason. All things can, like, they'll stop me. They'll stop me. And is it them or is it my higher self? It's my higher self. I fully signed on to try and make a difference. And in order to make the difference that I want to, I have to surrender. I have to be part of a divine flow. But I'm really, really, really willful. And that can take a turn into stubbornness sometimes, including the part where I was receiving repeated messages about, like, hey, dude, you're really not supposed to be working with this person. Like, we're going to show you over and over again. Have you noticed you do not get results from anything that you collaborate on this person with? And it's not Jacob, by the way. It's not Jacob. If Jacob's hearing this and he's over there going, wait, what? No, it's not you, dude. Jacob and I have a very similar philosophy about what we're trying to use tarot for. And I'm not going to name the person. And if they're listening, like, I think you've already probably figured this out, because I don't get results from the collaborations that we've done together. And I wish this person absolutely nothing but well. But for a full almost year, I ignored that. Every single time I had contact with them, I would get the same cards about attachments that are about lesser aspects, shadow aspects, and also a beware thing, which was about warning me about making sure that the people in my life valued the same things that I do. And that is not to say that there's anything wrong with this person's character. There genuinely is not. They just want to walk in a different lane than I do. And I kept trying to be like, okay, well, maybe I can dip a toe into the water over there. I'm not supposed to. I'm not supposed to. And I finally accepted the lesson and have been acting from it. And sure enough, things started moving again in my life. But for a while, they wouldn't. And it's also that, like, I have a very hard time accepting messages that are in variance with what I want. And that is going to be true for literally everybody that can hear this. If you are getting repeated warnings on things, if you keep getting the same card, please heed it. If you keep getting the same, like, red flags and you're, like, explaining it away, usually because of somebody's past. We do that in relationships a lot, like, particularly because people want romantic love because they've been programmed to want romantic love. If we look at the results from it in society and around us, it's like, it usually doesn't last, does it? True compatibility is somewhat rare and takes a long time to find. And if you try and settle because you want the companionship, that is not the same thing as having compatibility. And the premise behind the Tower, which is a card of everything being changed, is that everything built on a faulty foundation must fall. And that circles us back to patience and success and why you need it for personal empowerment. If you build your success on a faulty foundation that still contains your fear of failure and an inability to accept challenges and an inability to keep going forward and to persevering, even if you're not getting that much encouragement, which is part of, like, your ability to trust, which trust is a big part of the process. If you haven't conquered patience yet, even if something comes to you, even if it's wonderful, even if it's great, it can actually fall. And the biggest and easiest example of that in the tarot world is Doreen Virtue. Now, Doreen Virtue is somebody who has the romance angels, a couple of other things. She no longer reads. In fact, I believe she's an evangelical Christian at this point, because she had everything. And I think that what really happened was her choices were eventually corrupted by greed, because there's a lot of greed in our society because it's capitalistic, and a lack of money breeds fear for survival. And so people gain and gain and gain trying to seek safety. And they don't understand that gain for the sake of it is attracting a negative attachment. And so she pretty much had everything, including a great big home in Ocean County, but her marriage was going south. And when they broke up, like, her ex-husband, her now ex-husband, got a lot of the stuff and she lost everything. And now she believes she was talking to demons and tells everybody that tarot card readers are talking to demons. That is not true, but she has not recognized the role of greed in her life. She became very commercialized. A lot of the work that she did, like, some of her decks are great, and then there are ones where it's like, well, you were clearly just making these to make another product to sell more, to gain more. And so were there attachments that came from a darker realm attached to some of the things? And was she actually being influenced by darker realms? Probably. I really can't speak to her experience. And the only reason I'm naming her is, honest to goodness, she is somebody who would to my face say you're speaking to demons, and she is not correct. And how do I know this for sure? Listen, it's really hard to know for sure something that is not, you can't see it, it's in another realm. I know that whatever I interact with is always guided by trying to make the world a better place. And even if it's difficult, and even if it's challenging, and even if it means personal growth, which can entail personal loss. And if that is not a force for good, I don't know what is. So that is the standard that I hold my guidance to, and it's the standard I try and hold myself to. And does it mean that I have, I ever will have a Lamborghini and a mansion by the beach or anything? No, it does not, but I don't want those things. And that was honestly part of why I swerved on the YouTube journey as well, because I started observing people who were very, very successful and how removed from their audience they had to be for safety's sake over and over again. And I decided it was just not the path that I wanted to walk. It was the example that I had seen where it's like, well, what can you do with this that will make a big difference in this world? And at first that was the thing that was like, oh, that I can do that. And then I saw the pitfalls of it, including not being able to connect to people on kind of an individual basis, which is what I need to do to try and help people. I'm a crossroads guide. People meet me when they're at a crossroads in their own path, and crossroads will return to you. But is a, for instance, that I'm always using is that I was in my early 30s when a shaman told me, you're a shaman, you need to go train as a shaman. But you need to leave your husband. I was like, I'm not gonna leave my husband. He's like, yes, you are. Like, oh, no, you're not. He was right. It just was it was a journey forward for a while until I accepted that this repeated message, because it came to me more than once from more than one source. People kept telling me I was supposed to be doing something in a shamanic or a healing capacity, but that my now ex-husband was not a part of that, and that I needed to leave him. And eventually I left him because our relationship became increasingly toxic, as, like, essentially the forces that I had asked to be part of my life tried to get me to see, you got to get out of there. This is holding you back from what you're meant to be doing. And we all have a purpose. And it's not, please don't measure it by whether or not it is important in the eyes of a society that has very flawed understandings of what we are here and meant to do. Because we really do measure things by bank account, and success is first contained in your personal peace and your personal happiness. And what helps aid that, where I'm going to say, it's patience. It's patience. Patience allows you to enjoy the day that is brought to you as it is brought to you. Patience allows you to look for the lessons in the challenges that are brought to you with what vulnerabilities are they trying to help me to strengthen. Because so many of the tests and the lessons that are brought to us are about trying to shine a, listen, improve that, and you will get a better outcome. You'll have a better life. You will do more of what you want to. And yes, you get to be happier. Because the thing that you need to remember, when I said I will never have a Lamborghini nor a mansion by the beach, I genuinely never wanted one. I genuinely never wanted one. Through my ex-husband, I used to have a very privileged life, and I was never comfortable around people who were super privileged because they had shut themselves down to other people out of a fear-based place. And I just wasn't comfortable there because it was not an authentic form of living. And I became, and that's not to judge people who have more. You can be a very authentic person, but it was not the realm, again, it was not the realm I was meant to be walking in. But if there is a part of you that it's like, but I really want a Lamborghini, is that wrong? It's not wrong. It's not wrong. You can want what you want, but understand that as you heal, because so many wants are about trying to patch up like a wound within. Sometimes it's about showing other people. A long time ago, I read somebody and they never returned. And like, honest to goodness, there isn't even one identifying detail in what I'm about to share. The person asked me when we were doing a romance read, the person who was coming towards them, would other people be jealous? And that was important to the person I was reading. And I don't know what it was about, but the answer was like, sort of like you'll have a really good relationship. So there are some people who envy it, but they really, really wanted to know if the way the person looked would make those around them jealous because they wanted that. And I don't understand why to this moment, but that is usually about having felt negatively judged. It is the I'll show you energy of it. And will they outgrow it? Yes, I believe so. I believe so. That was actually a really good souled person. And it was a startling question to me. I've never been asked it again, but that had to do with a vulnerability in that person's own esteem, that they would feel more valuable if this person everybody else wanted chose them instead, and it would finally convey worth to them. And that is not what romantic love is for. It does not convey love to you. It does not convey, it does not convey worth to you. It conveys love. It brings something into your life that shores up a part of you, but it's not everything about you. And if you're hearing this and a part of you is very disappointed in that or rebels against it, I beg of you to understand that is a modern day construct. People did not used to believe that the point of their life was falling in love. But in patriarchal societies, as women wanted more and more power and strived to be more equal, and in fact achieved a lot of equality and more opportunities, then the idea that you needed to be loved by usually a man was the thing that was programmed into people, and it was put into stories so that people would think that's the pinnacle on what I'm trying to achieve. But in like kind of days of yore where they'd got some things right and many, many things wrong, people really viewed their own journey as about contributing something to their upkeep, to the world, to their families. And the idea of being romantically loved was recognized as being something that was likely to be transient, that there was love in your life, but that romance had a tendency to burn out. And that is the thing that they actually did get right. A real romance, one that lasts your lifetime, is rare. You can find it. If you want it, it can come to you. But if you settle for the people who have the appearance of it, or you think other people will see it there, you're unlikely to find it because you will be settling. And I am somebody who did settle for security. And it's a decision I made primarily to try and help my son. And I did actually love my ex-husband, but it was not a particularly romantic love. And so I recognized the role that I played in the toxicity that followed, because the reasons that I was looking for a relationship were more about protecting myself. And even though I fully accepted him and tried to support him and everything, and like I vowed as like when I married him that I would be the best wife I could humanly be and that his troubles would be mine and all kinds of things. And I actually kept that promise. But when I look at the ways in which it's like, well, what part did I play in bringing about a fairly catastrophic ending to something? It is that it's like, well, I was looking for a relationship to fill a hole in my security, with not being able to believe that I would be able to provide for it. And those are things that learning patience will help you heal. Everything will circle that back to patience, because when you are patient, you are in a state of receptivity, both to your magic, both to your manifestation, both to your spiritual connection, to being able to attract your real soulmate. Patience is literally the key to your personal power. And if you hear the word patience and a part of you just groans and thinks, oh, waiting, it's not waiting. It's being able to receive. And in fact, when you're actually achieving patience, quite frequently things will start to happen very quickly indeed. And you won't be overwhelmed by them. Why? Because you've learned the lessons that are brought by fear, by failure, by adversity. by having your courage challenged to just keep persevering and going on. And you will be able to surrender to the flow. When it goes quickly, you will go quickly. When it goes slowly, you will enjoy the leisurely pace, knowing that every season changes and everything turns. But if you lean into learning your lessons, you will have the success that you want. And the first one is, if you have a negative reaction to the word patience, that's what you need to heal. And you start by, every time you feel it, I'm choosing peace. And you remind yourself of the stakes of the moment. Nothing's really happening here. Nobody's dying on a table. It's really not that big a deal. If something gets broken, you clean it up. If something gets spilled, you mop it up. It is not a big deal. It is never worth damaging yourself. And if you react to setbacks, which is usually what tweaks are in patients, if you react to setbacks with an extreme reaction, that disrupts your energy and gets you out of flow. And you'll be more comfortable, and you'll be happier, and you will have more ease and manifestation, particularly if you're doing magic, because at the root of all this, I am a celestial and angelic practitioner. And so I really believe in the magic of creation, and I've seen the ways it work. One of these days, I really will sit down and I will do an episode about the magic that I did in February of 2019 that changed my entire life. And I did a spell to protect myself, and I was like 5 inches from being dead pretty much when I did it. It was a very desperate thing. I was trying to get out of a very toxic situation. And so I did a spell to protect myself from my now ex-partner. And it had some spectacular results. But the difference in the type of magic that I do when I'm in a good place and when I was in that, scared out, because it was like grenades being thrown into multiple lives in terms of the impact that it had on everybody around me and on me. I not only will the universe blow up a bridge that you're standing on if you're trying to cross into the wrong land, I literally asked for that. I did a spell about prosperity that has a lot of language about momentum building and things happening very swiftly. And then I invoked archangels in order to protect me. And they did. They did. And it got colorful. And it absolutely worked. When I do magic now for clients and for myself, I can see the way it flows much more easily. Always make sure to check in with your emotional situation. Why are you doing something? Are you doing it from a place of fear? Are you doing it from a place of anger? Because your results will reflect that. They will reflect that in the magnitude and the flow of the energy that is being brought to you. Magic is real. It doesn't work like Harry Potter. It is a focus tool for your own personal energy. And if you believe that your own energy creates the world around you, then you will be able to tap into it. And I can give you an example if there's a part of you that does not believe in magic. If I say something very soothingly, if I'm talking to you like this, if I'm starting to point things out and it's very flowing, can you feel the energy dropping? Can you feel yourself slowing down? Can you feel yourself breathing a little bit easier? But if I say something like this, I'm bringing the energy up and there's tension. And do you understand? That is the easiest way to understand that we have power over the energy that is around us. And that is the expression of my voice. But everything else about me also contains an energy, the energetic flow in my mood. You can see a person who is happy and see a person who is sad, and they have a different energy. And it's not just based on whether or not they're actively laughing or weeping. It is based on how they carry themselves. The energy that you create has an impact on those around you. And if you learn the tools, and the first one really is about the role of challenges and adversity and learning patience in your life. If you learn these things, you can learn how to project the energy that you want. And you will sometimes have bad days because they will keep you tuned up like you're a car. They will make sure that you can still handle frustration, that you can still handle things going wrong. Remember, you have to be exceptionally flexible when you're truly successful, because a lot of things are going to be coming at you. And that's the role of patience and success. That's the role of patience and manifestation, is if you are in a patient energy, nothing knocks you off balance, because nothing has that power, because all things are transient and here to try and teach you something about how to be more powerful. All right. So, like I said, this was originally planned as a discussion with Jacob, but instead you just got me monologuing about patience. And I did make a video of this. Last time I made a video, one that was just me and I didn't make a video, I got a couple emails about it. So I always try to make a video because some people feel more connected when they can see somebody and others just are listening on the audio, and there's no right or wrong answer. Guys, it has been wonderful talking to you. My name is Elaine. You can book me for a tarot card reading, a life coaching session. I actually also do teach celestial and angelic magic, but I won't teach to everybody. You have to be suited to it. It will work for people who don't have the same value system that I do, but it has funky results. It does very strange things. So I won't teach absolutely everybody. You have to have had a reading with me to make sure that it is the modality for magic that you should be using. Healers, frequently, it is their modality. But you can book me for a tarot card reading, a life coaching session, a magic lesson at therisingmoon.com. That is the only way to book me. If you're ever approached in comment sections, that's not me. Every single person who has any type of social media presence ends up being cloned. And they're not going to give you a reading or anything else. They're just going to take your money. They work via WhatsApp usually, so be careful with that. The other thing is you can find me at cronecast at the Rising Moon, after the maiden, mother, and crone as the magical stages of a woman's life. And please remember, crones have the control and the wisdom, and it is actually the most powerful magical stage of a woman's life. And that's part of the reason that modern day society has made you fear aging so much, because if you lean into it, you will find out I am more powerful, not less. It's just that my power was never contained in whether or not society deemed me acceptable and attractive, because that is about putting your self-image and your self-worth into another person's hand. And the other place you can find me is here on Logical Magic, Examining Esoterica. There are usually episodes every week. I have a love and relationship expert coming up next week. And the week after that, I have somebody who went from prison to purpose. I'm going to introduce you to a man who took a very bad experience in his life and he learned his lessons, and he's been teaching and leading others and guiding them. But this has been Logical Magic, Examining Esoterica. Thank you so much for joining me. Find your patience and you will find your power.